Oh, I think I got it.
Jazz hands.
Yep, we're live. Woohoo!
Yay.
Thank God, because that was annoying as hell.
I mean, this is why we practice. Imagine we went through what we went through last week.
Oh my God. Yes, but
And
that would
if
have
we
made
didn't
for
practice.
golden comedy. Golden comedy.
But none of it was recorded.
I know. It lives in my memory though.
It was recorded real
So
hard.
hello people, I guess.
Horde. Hi.
I,
Anyone
I
who's here
guess we're
with us?
live. Um, sorry that we're here 10 minutes late.
It
We're
was bound
still
to happen.
adjusting to the what?
I said it was bound to happen. Let's be
I
real.
know. Well, I think I figured out what it was, and so what I'm just gonna have to do is make sure to reset that every time.
Oh,
That's the only thing I know to do.
okay.
Because you have to put in like a stream key and a URL. So every time, I guess. So
Sure. Sure.
we'll just do that, and it may be the long way round, but if it gets the results that we want, then who cares?
Who the fuck cares?
So, and we may be talking to a crowd of 0 people tonight, and that's okay.
That is
Um,
okay. That's how we
I'm kind
usually
of hoping
talk to
that
each other, so.
I'm, yeah, I'm kind of hoping that some of our old listeners hop on, but I
Yeah,
mean,
me too.
I really don't feel like the reception has been super great. Super great. So
I mean, I will
we'll
say
see.
a bunch of people reached out to us and just wanted to make sure. I think one of the problems is like a few, like a hardcore chunk of people live on the east or the west
Yeah,
coast. So watching this at 5 p.m. for them is just not possible, which I totally understand. But
yeah,
but
yeah.
for everyone's awareness, this should be uploaded to YouTube when we're done.
Yes, yeah. It will stay on YouTube. Yes, so people can go back and watch. That's
Mm-hmm.
no problem. Um, man, gosh, Kate, it's been a minute.
It has been a minute. You know what I was thinking about today, Jesse?
What?
We've known each other for 6 years.
No,
Yeah. Wait a minute. 5 years. I'm
5 years.
sorry.
It's still
Either way.
gross.
Either way.
It's still gross.
I mean, knowing you hasn't been gross, but the time that
Well,
has
yeah,
passed has been quite disgusting. Yes, I agree.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Um,
2019 is when we started talking.
yeah. Zach and I will be married for 6 years in September.
Yay! That's gross. Ew.
Yeah, yeah. We've peaked into the second half of the first decade, which feels strange, but
It sure does.
yeah, it is what it is. We're still kicking, so that's all that
Still
matters, I
hanging in there.
guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
still the same old, same old.
Same old, same
Um,
old.
but yeah, as you can see, we're in very different environments than we used to be back in
Mm-hmm.
the old days. I have my own computer set up, but we moved it into our bedroom um, to make space in the little office for storage. So I am in here. It's not very
Mm-hmm.
anything glamorous, but it is our bedroom.
It's real life,
And
babe.
huh,
I said it's
that's
real
real
life,
life.
babe.
But look at my
Yeah.
quilt. Can you see my quilt?
It's hard
Hold
to
on.
tell. I was kind of trying to notice that before. There's like a lot going on over there.
See my
Oh, it's got
quilt?
a sun on it.
Yeah, it's like a star thing.
Oh, that's so
Um,
fun.
my friend Chad thrifted that for me,
Ooh.
and I know it's gorgeous. I love it. And so now it's like the centerpiece of our bed, and I'm obsessed with it. So,
Are you a make the bed every day kind of girl?
so I was until I met my husband because he is a not make the bed person. If you could see the catastrophe that is out of camera of the clothes and crap that sits here, um, I made sure that there wasn't an ounce of that in this video.
I kind of
Um,
figured.
I love you, babe, if you're watching, but you're messy. Um, so anyway, but when Chad gave me this blanket or this quilt, I told Zach, I was like, I'm gonna get something to go underneath it so that it matches, and then I'm gonna make the bed every day. I wanted to be able to make the bed and not feel like I had to like dress it up and put a bunch of like throw pillows and stuff. I just wanted like our pillows, a quilt, and I wanted to be very homey.
Mm-hmm.
So it works out perfect. But now I'm up pretty much every day because I love my quilt and I want to see it. So
Yeah, you want to put it on. You want to put it on display. I totally get that.
yeah, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gorgeous. I can't believe he actually found that at a thrift store. It's insane.
Yeah, it
But
looks
he's
beautiful. I
really
mean, I can't
good.
really tell, but
He's really good at finding things like that.
yeah, I've
He's a
never
prime
been.
thrifter.
Yeah, some people are so good at that. I don't think I've ever even set foot into a thrift store, like a real one.
Oh, and I love to
Yeah,
thrift. I'm not as good at it as my friend Chad,
it's
but
amazing how people can get good at something like that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it seems
He
like
has well,
luck.
he's super artistic and he has an eye for design and he has an eye for like really nice pieces of clothing. Like it's just like in his nature. So he's just really good at all that stuff. I'm more of like if I like it, I don't care if it's designer or not designer, like whereas he'll be like, this looks designer and he'll pick it up and it's like, Gucci and he's like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay. So whatever. I mean, I don't know if he's ever picked up Gucci, but he's picked up like, some more nice high-end
Yeah,
brands. Like
people are really good at it.
yeah, like he thrifted me for my birthday. Now I think he thrifted it online, but he found on like one of these thrift stores that he shops at, a Kate Spade bag that's the color that I like particularly. It's like a wine color. It's like not purple, it's not red, it's kind of like in the middle. And he thrifted it for like $30. And he gave it to me for my birthday.
Wow.
And it's in like pristine condition. Like it looks brand spanking new.
Oh my god.
And I was like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. So I use it
Yeah,
every
like it,
day.
it could have been brand new. Like that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, I know. So Kate, in lieu of tradition, what kind of tea are you
Yeah.
drinking tonight?
I'm drinking.
In
Hang
lieu
on,
of
let
tradition, I
me.
don't know if that's the right wording for it,
I think that's correct.
or
It's
in
good enough.
in
In honor
honor
of
of
tradition,
tradition. Yeah.
or like in lieu of. We don't have to overthink this. Just go for it. You
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
Hang on. Let me just let my cat out of the room really quick. That's
Sure.
not a euphemism. I'm actually letting my cat out. Leave.
Leave.
Okay.
Just leave.
Okay. She has the last. I don't know how because it's like a legitimate door. Has been able to like push it open. So fingers crossed. I just shut it hard enough. Anyway, the tea that I'm drinking is. It's not on here. Oh, it's a mint medley. I think it's
Mm.
spearmint and peppermint. I heard on my favorite podcast, actually. I'm a big, this is a newer development. Not newer, but newer in the sense of I never talked about this when we were previously on a podcast. My favorite podcast is The Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard.
Oh, okay.
And his co-host Monica drinks this spearmint tea every day to try to help with her skincare because
Mm.
allegedly spearmint, I think it's spearmint, helps with your skin. Again, I'm putting air
Yes.
quotes around this. I listen to Monica, who's a fellow millennial. I'm like, I'll try drinking tea, like mint tea also, and see if it works, see if it makes a difference.
Yeah. Spearmint is really good for female hormones.
That's
Um,
probably why then.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, spearmint in general is just a really great herb to have. Um,
Mm-hmm.
both peppermint and spearmint have a lot of good medicinal qualities, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's
spearmint in
delicious.
particular. Yeah.
Like I
Yeah,
know
it
some people
is.
aren't like mint people or whatever, and I wouldn't call myself a mint person, but like I'm not a mint person either.
Hmm.
Um and something about this tea is just like really refreshing and quite yummy, and I'm almost done with it.
Good.
So,
I tried a new tea tonight. I actually brought for those that are tuning in that don't know us very well, or those of you that forgot, we're both huge tea drinkers. I
mhm.
recently have started my own tea brand, which is
Yay.
actually launching online this Friday, which I'm really excited about. So I'm like super into trying new teas. I love supporting small tea businesses. And my husband and I went to we have a big comic convention in Orlando every year that Zach and I are like super into, we love, and we always go.
Mhm.
And there's a tea company that comes and they're called Tea and Absinthe. and so their bags look like this. And this is called Staying In, and it's got
Ooh,
black tea, cocoa peel, cocoa bits, freeze-dried raspberries, cinnamon, blackberry leaves, blueberry leaves, freeze-dried blueberries, freeze-dried cranberries, and freeze-dried raspberries.
my goodness.
And it's delish. It's a very sweet tea. It's a more of a dessert tea if you're into
Yeah, I was
that
gonna
kind of thing.
say, is it like super fruity? It sounds like it'd be super fruity.
Yeah, you know what it kind of reminds me of is like have you ever had like a chocolate bar that has like raspberry bits in it? That's what it tastes like.
Okay. Yeah, I would hate that.
Or like a dessert, like a cake that has raspberry chocolate. Like it just has that kind of like sweet and tart combination. You know,
Like an
it's not
infusion.
too sweet. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So but anyway, so I thought I would give it a try in honor of our first episode.
Is
Usually you'll find me drinking Lady Grey from Twinings because that is my favorite tea of all time. But
mm-hmm.
I figured I would give this a shot.
Is this your first time drinking it?
Mhm. In
I actually
my
feel like
Jungle Book mug,
naturally in my cat mug because
kitty cat
that's my
mug.
vibe. Which I
Yes,
made this mug before I adopted my cat, like way before, and I feel like I manifested her because this cat kind of looks like my cat.
there you go.
Look, a tail.
Oh, that's cute.
I made this in like one of those pottery painting classes.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cute. Well, my
Let's suck it
aesthetic
up.
is Disney, for those of you that
Always.
don't remember.
How many
So
Disney mugs do you think you have?
a lot.
Yeah.
I have on, well, I don't know if they were up by the time you came to visit, but I have on my wall in the kitchen, I have two coffee cup racks that are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cups each. And I bought like in the late 80s through the 90s and just tiptoeing into the 2000s, Disney would make these perfect sized uh, coffee cups that just had like they were like themed for one of their movies. So there's a Lion King one, there's a you know Little Mermaid one, there's a Beauty and the Beast one, there's a Pocahontas one, and so I bought like a ton of those, and I filled those uh, coffee cup racks on the wall. So I have 16 Disney ones sitting on my wall right now. Anyway,
Right. Those are just the ones on the wall.
right, and then I have probably another 10 to 12 in the cabinet. So I have a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, you are who you are. And I love
Yep.
that. You truly
Yep.
embrace it. We
Mm-hmm.
actually, like, mugs are one of those things that you don't realize how much room they take up when you're just like buying one at a gift shop. You're like, oh, yeah, like I'm in Massachusetts. I want to get a
Cute little mug.
Boston mug or, yeah, like a little commemorative mug. And then you go
Mm-hmm.
home, you're like, where am I going to put this mug?
I have 40 mugs. Where am I going to put this?
That was
Yeah.
probably one of the like biggest like excite well one of the biggest reasons that we moved recently was because we needed more space for storage, and I don't think we
I thought you were going to
realized, but
say for your mugs. And I was like, oh, okay.
well, that's where I was going with that.
Oh,
Because
God.
I don't well, first of all, we threw a bunch out like way back in the day because we just didn't have a room for them, and we are like, I gotta let go of some of these that like
Yeah.
I've never used, and they're just sitting in the back of the cabinet like when me and Kevin moved in together. um and we had to combine our mugs. It was like combining children. Um, and then we moved in here, and now we have like a whole shelf in a corner cabinet dedicated to them, and it's so nice to just like use them all.
Pick which one you want. Yeah.
And that's the thing too. Like we have not had a dishwasher in years, either of us. So now we do. And the funny thing is when you don't have a dishwasher, you use the
You end
same
up
mug
using
over
the
and over
same
again.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, because you clean it, it's just on the counter drying, you just use it the next day. You're not going to make more dishes for yourself. So you should see our dishwasher every time we like run it now. The whole top rack is filled with mugs
Yes.
because so we're
Hey, but
actually
you know what?
getting
You're getting your money's worth out of it
that's
now.
I'm so happy about it because we're
Hmm.
actually like they're not just stupid decorations collecting dust in the cabinet. They're like
Hmm.
getting used. They're living their purpose, and I'm happy for
That's
my
right.
mugs now. So that was kind of like adjacent to we needed storage, aka we needed storage for our mugs.
Yes. I have probably like 10 mugs in my collection that I like do not use. Like they were more collector items.
Yeah.
I need to find a way to like display them and get them out of the cabinet so that I can actually like utilize the space. But I don't really use the ones on the wall unless we have company. Like those are my company mugs. So like when people come
Oh, that's
over, I'll
cute.
like make tea or coffee and we'll go choose
Yeah.
your mug, go choose your mug, you know. Um,
That's such a mom thing to do.
I know. Um, but when it's just me, there's like a set of like four mugs that I use all the time. And
Yeah.
this is one of them. My Jungle Book is one of them. And it's this one. I have a Little Mermaid one that's big. I have
Mm-hmm.
a Friends one that is big. I think I've used my Friends one
I'm
from past
I'm sure
podcasts.
you used your Little Mermaid one as well.
Yeah. And then there's like one that I got at Marshall's that has like all the Disney princesses on it. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
did also, when I want something smaller, I did get a Sex and the City mug. I found it at Books a Million, and I don't know if you knew this, but that's like I started getting obsessed with Sex and the City last year. Like it became like one of my favorite shows.
I remember
Um,
this.
yeah, so I bought like a little like smaller standard size Sex and the City mug because most of my mugs are like these big,
Yeah, the big boys.
massive mugs. Yeah,
Yeah.
so because if you're gonna have it. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
man. Yeah.
saying? Yeah,
Have it
man.
all. Yeah,
That's
man.
right.
Rock on.
Hmm.
Speaking of rocking
So
on,
anyway, so what are we gonna talk about tonight?
did you forget?
No, I'm just asking. I'm starting a conversation, Kate.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know how conversations work. I'm bad at social situations.
We're a little rusty. We gotta get back in. Remember when we used
I
to do the
know.
Parch podcast and we would be like, whoa, 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 we have the same things we'd say all the time?
Yeah, I know. We'll get there. I also feel like I don't know if it's self-conscious is the word, but I feel like my voice is carrying so much in this room that I feel like the whole apartment building can hear me. I know they can't, but I'm like very self-aware right now, which is a problem when you're doing something like this. Like you cannot be
Yes.
self-aware.
Were you earlier today, were you like nervous to do this?
If I'm being honest, the main reason I was nervous to do this, and I'm not saying I procrastinated because I didn't, but like I did a little bit because I didn't write anything down yet,
Oh, yeah.
you know? Like I
I
have
wasn't
to have
expecting you
notes
to
to
write
do
anything
this.
down.
No, but I kind of need to like cuz otherwise I wouldn't be able to talk about it. Like
Oh,
I just like even just like jotting stuff down. Um so like this morning I was like, okay, you have a light day at work today. I was like, just put your headphones in at work and take out your notebook and pretend like you're writing notes at work, but you're writing notes about your music. And I was multitasking. I was like answering emails and also like taking notes about the music.
yeah.
So like I feel good now. Um, but like in general, in my head, I'm like, you know what? At the end of the day, we're just sitting and talking about it.
That's right. We're just shooting the shit,
Um,
man.
yeah, I don't. Who knows if anyone's even ever gonna watch this? And I mean, maybe one day they will. But yeah, I wasn't too nervous. I was more nervous about it not working.
Oh, I was, for some reason, like as the day progressed, I was like, man, I'm getting kind of nervous. And I don't
Oh,
really know
really?
why. I don't know why, because it's just me and you, but
I
I think
know.
maybe it has to do with the fact that there goes my husband, um, that we are trying something new. And,
100%. Yeah, no, I get
you
that.
know,
I'm the
maybe
same
that's
way.
what it is.
Whenever I'm doing something new, I'm like I'm always have anxiety about it to some
Yeah,
level, to some degree.
yeah.
Yeah. But
And
this
two,
was
like when we were doing the podcast, like things could be edited out and like we
yeah.
had like a rhythm and a flow, and now it's all just kind of like long
You have to
form. There's no music, there's no cuts, there's nothing. It's just
mhm. It's starting
us.
and it's like starting something over almost. Like we had like you said we
Yeah,
had such a routine, now we have to find
a
our groove
rhythm.
in this too. Yeah.
Yep.
And we
Yeah.
will. I'm sure we
Oh
will
yeah, we
for once
will.
we actually start talking about like what we plan to talk about, I think that it'll start to come naturally to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
hopefully people are still
Well,
watching and indulge us in our tea conversation.
we have two viewers right now.
Do we? Oh my
I don't know
God.
who they are,
Hi.
but thank you for showing up.
Hi. Oh, I wish I could see
So,
that stuff on my end too.
yeah, I don't have a chat open. I think I might have a chat, but I can't see a window. So I'll figure that out. Maybe next time we can start
It's all
engaging in the
good.
chat.
It's all good.
Um, so anyway, hello viewers, if you're here. Thanks
Hi.
for
Hi. Hi.
joining
Hi. Hi.
us.
Hi. Greetings.
It's been a
Greetings.
while. Likely you're people that already know who we are, but if you're not, thanks for joining Two Turntables and a Microphone. I'm Jessi, that's Kate,
Hi.
and
Oh
we're just
yeah, we
here
didn't introduce
to,
ourselves.
yeah, we're
Oops.
just here to shoot the shit. That's like been our motto from the get-go. We started out with a Pearl Jam podcast back in
Mhm.
2019, right? Is that
I
when we
think so.
started it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we kind of drifted away from that for a while, but we wanted to come back together and talk about music and kind of
Yeah.
expand beyond the beautifulness that is Pearl Jam. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Not that we don't love them, and we'll likely talk about them a lot,
Yeah.
but we wanted to try to find new music, stuff that Kate doesn't know, stuff that I don't know, stuff that maybe we both don't know, and
Mm-hmm.
go from there. So,
Yeah. This
and
is
on that
a
note, go
No, I
ahead,
was just gonna
go
say
ahead.
I would describe the idea behind this as a book club, but with records, which I love
Yes.
because it'll give us each both a month to spend with the album of our choosing. And it'll give us time to think about it, like research the band a little bit or research the
Hmm.
album and kind of get to know some music that either we're already familiar with and learn some new things or teach the other person some things about, or we're both just going to completely learn something new together,
Yep.
just like you would in a book club, and just try to have as much fun with it as possible and probably talk about not the album too
Other
for
things
quite a bit of it.
like
Yeah.
tea
Yeah. And
or
last week you missed the Jonas
whatever.
Brothers conversation that we didn't record.
Yes, a very
Sorry.
lengthy Jonas Brothers conversation. And you know
Yeah.
what? I'd have it again.
I
Because
know you
fuck yeah,
would.
I love the Jonas Brothers. And I'm not even sorry about it, okay?
You don't need to be sorry about it. Ooh.
Thank you. Thank you for validating me.
Anytime, girl.
Okay.
That's why I'm here.
So we should move on. Let's go ahead and shift
Okay.
into gear and start touching in on some so the reason why the folks are here,
Yeah, sure.
which
The
is
meat of it.
Bauhaus. So
Bauhaus.
Kate, when I texted you and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, this is the album we're gonna do," what were your initial thoughts?
Um, my initial thoughts were like, instantly, I was like, I don't know this at all. I don't know who these people are. I've never seen this album art. I've never heard of this album. My knee jerk reaction was, I've never heard of this band. But the longer I looked at the name, the more I was like, I still don't know who this band is. I don't know their music, but the name, something about the name looked familiar. So I don't know where I've seen it before or in what context, but yeah, so that's kind of where I went. I was like, okay, I am this clearly this first one is going to be something completely new for me.
I'm doing some quick research. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's do. Let's look at this and see if I can find it. It doesn't help me when that's in front of. Hold on. I'm doing this so I can read behind my camera. Da, 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 da. I was wondering if, yep, they are. Bauhaus is on Jeff Ament's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame T-shirt, the one that he wore
Like
of
that
all the
should
bands
be
that
in the Hall
haven't
of
gotten
Fame.
nominated. Hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So
Maybe
that
that's what I
could
was thinking
be kind of where you know their name from.
Possibly. It could
Yep.
just be a name too that like pops up like when I read autobiographies
Oh,
or
sure.
like all that kind of stuff. Like I'm sure it's come up in that way, but it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
something I'm familiar with. Like, and even this, aside from the songs on this album, I kind of like Googled them and did some Wikipedia today. And I'm like, yeah, even the song that they're most famous for, I've never heard of that before either.
Mm,
So completely out of the loop here on this one. But I
love it.
definitely have thoughts about it. And
Okay.
I'm excited to share them as we go through. But I want to ask what your, like, I know that you have this record club outside of here. I'm
Yeah.
curious if you know like, was it you that put the album in there, and or when it was pulled, did you know, like, how did you feel about it?
So I think I was the one that suggested it. So for context, Kate and I are kind of in a way bouncing off of something that I'm doing in my personal life with a few friends of mine. Um, it's me and three other guys that are getting together, and we get together once a month and we talk about an album that we pulled from just like a big uh, container full of records that we all wrote down. And we talk about it and we talk about what we liked, what we didn't like. We give it a review, we give it a star rating, and then we kind of just pick a new one and we do the
Mm-hmm.
same thing every month. We've been doing that for about 6 months now, I think.
Oh wow, that's
Um,
great.
yeah, oh my God, it's so much fun. And it's also, for those of you that don't know, most of you do, I own a record store. So they're
Mhm.
all like customers that have become really good friends.
I was
And it's
wondering how you knew
literally
these
me
people.
and, huh?
I was wondering how you knew these people.
Yeah. So it's me and three middle-aged dudes, which is so freaking great. I
I
love
love
it.
that. I
I
yeah,
love it.
I love that too.
One is 40, one is 47, and one is fixing to be 60. I mean, it's like it's perfect.
Oh, it's so pure. It's my
Yes, it's wonderful.
demographic.
Yes, and
It's who I
they're
relate to the
like
most.
three new dads for me essentially because it's like
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
amazing.
I remind them that I'm not as far away. I mean, me and one of the guys, Matt, are less than 10 years apart. So it's
Yeah.
not like we're that far apart.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, they all just kind of take me under, like, we meet at my store and we meet after I close. So it's usually like 9 o'clock or so when we leave. And they all take turns walking to me to my car. Like, they're super sweet.
That's
Um,
so gracious.
yeah, they're wonderful. So anyway, so that's kind of what we're piggybacking off of because Kate and I wanted to be able to do this, but we don't have a lot of time to like sit down and work all this up ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I put I think I put Mask in, I call it the pot. Um, I think I put it in the pot. I don't see the other guys picking something Bauhaus, maybe one of them, but I don't think so. I started listening to Bauhaus. I don't even remember how. Yes, I do. I do remember how. I made a playlist years ago. I love making playlists that feel like character aesthetics. So, like when Stranger Things came out, I made this whole like 1985 and before 1985 like hard rock heavy metal playlist because I wanted it to feel like Eddie from Stranger Things. Um, And so I made a playlist several years ago based off of Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, one of my favorite TV characters. And he talks a lot about these kinds of bands in the show. Um, and so I put Bauhaus on that playlist, and I just kind of started listening to their first album, particularly In the Flat Field is their first album, and I
Mm-hmm.
loved it. I loved it, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this album is amazing. It's so great." But I never really like took it farther than that, and so I've heard other customers of mine say like, "Oh, you've got to listen to Mask. You've got to listen to Mask. It's so good. It's so good." So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna throw it in the pot and see what happens. So here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are. And I'm going to throw out some facts because that's what Kate and I do. We throw out facts
Mm-hmm.
uh, about Mask. So it was released according to Wikipedia. Please, people, understand this is all according to Wikipedia.
We're
It
not
was
doing
released on
hardcore
October 6th.
research.
Yeah, my hardcore research. That's right. It was released on, oh, I just moved my page, October 16th, 1981. I have it on the genre. I have it listed as post-punk, gothic, and alternative. It was recorded at Playground and Jam Studios in London, England. And it's on the record label Beggar's Banquet, which is a British label that was birthed from some record stores back in the 80s. And they grew to become the Beggars Group record company, which has a few people. If you're into record collecting, you might recognize a few of the sub labels that are underneath them, but that's kind of the background of them. And then what else do I have here? Um, the illustration on the front cover, which is like this kind of rugged looking man, and then almost what looks like a teddy bear of sorts, was drawn by their lead guitarist, Daniel Ash. Um, and this succeeded their debut album, In the Flat Field, which came out in 1980. I have a couple other
That was a
things,
good.
but I'll hold off. Yes, there you go.
I don't know if
Gorgeous.
that actually
Perfect.
helps. If that looks like total shit on the live
Yes.
stream, I don't
No, it
know.
doesn't. It
But
looks, I mean, it looks
okay.
good to me anyway.
All right, there you go. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
It's a
I
little
wish I,
spooky, right?
yeah, maybe I'll like start getting to a point where I can like insert picture here,
We'll
insert
get
clip
there.
here, but guys, one step
Not
at a time
today.
because
Not today. We
yeah.
barely got
So
live today, so
yeah, we're 10 minutes late to the live because we couldn't figure it out when we had just done it 5 minutes before.
yeah, who knows what's
So
going on.
anyway, um, so that's kind. I have some other little things, but I think they can be shared later. So, um,
Okay.
why don't you start us off because I'm more familiar with this band. So even
Okay.
though I hadn't listened to Mask, I am more familiar with Bauhaus. I know a bit about their music. So what are your initial thoughts of, because this is way out of your, I feel like this is way out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's something that like if I had an idea of what this music was, I don't think I'd be like, no, I'm not going to listen to that.
Yeah.
Like if I heard of like maybe like a snippet of a song, I actually think it would pique my interest quite a bit. But I'd never heard of this music. Honestly, when I saw the name Bauhaus, I'm like, oh, this has to be like some like weird German band or something. And it's not.
Nope.
My
They're
understanding is
British.
that they're all from England. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, or is it England or wait, hang on, I have their
Somewhere in the UK, I'm
from
pretty sure.
Northampton. I don't
Yeah.
know. They're very touchy over there with like their designations on where they're from. So
Yes.
they're from
The
Northampton.
regions are very important.
Yeah. So I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't like look them up before I listened to the album. Like you sent it to me, and I honestly listened. I listened to probably half of it that day. I think I went for a walk during my. I was working from home, and I took a lunch break, and I went for a little walk. Um, and I was very pleasantly surprised by it. I was like, oh, thank God, this doesn't suck. Like if
The
this was
first
like our
one, and you're like, I
yeah
hate
our
it.
first one, like I'm like I have to talk myself into like liking this or listening to it. I was very pleasantly impressed with it, and I was like, okay, this can definitely keep me. It's keeping my interest, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and then after that day, I didn't listen to it fully through, and we've already had this discussion when we practiced last week. I was talking about how for me it feels like gone are the days where people would spend their pastime listening to a full album with nothing else going on. Like we live in a world where music is just part of your day or like it's like in your day, it's not a section of your day. And that's why I was pretty excited to start this with you because I really want to get back to like I don't know, like almost like when I was a kid and when you would listen to a CD or something, and that's all you could
Hmm.
really do was sit and listen to a CD. You didn't have a computer to play on. You didn't. First of all, I'm a kid. What do I have to do? I have all the free time in the world. Um, and there's no phone distracting me. There's no like email. Like it was just like reading a book. I'm gonna go listen to my favorite NSYNC album, like my favorite NSYNC CD.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is like a big reason why I was so excited to do this format. As much as I love talking about Pearl Jam every week, this is kind of forcing me into sitting down and spending time with one record. And I will say that is kind of how I still listen to music anyway. I do listen to playlists now that I'm a Spotify user because it's just easy to be like,
You
what?
switched to Spotify?
Oh, I switched to Spotify like 2 years ago. Yeah. 3 years ago, maybe even.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
I
I'm
am
fully on
sending you some
Spotify.
playlists.
Okay, that sounds
Oh.
good. But I'm like a big, just when I get in the car, I like plug in my Apple Play and I'm like, Daily Mix too. Sure, that sounds fine. Like that I'll listen to. But the way I really like to listen to music is I like to find an album I really like or an artist I really like and listen to full albums on repeat. Because that's how I've always known to listen to music. Um, it's just harder to sit down and like really pay attention to it when it's something that's brand new.
Right.
So I did my best here. with this Bauhaus record. I would put it on as often as possible, but most of the time, it was either when I was driving, or most of the time, honestly, it's when I'm driving. That's like really when I listen to the most music. I do a lot of driving for my job, so that really helps. But you can't really pay attention to the music in the same way that you like. Obviously, I'm paying attention to the road, so
Right.
but I listened to it fully through a couple of times. And I think it's I think it's a solid album. I think there's so many good components to it. There's so many things that I really, really, really love. But there is also a part of me that's like, I can listen to this album through once and now I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, listening to this album on repeat is like just like not a possibility for me. I don't know if it's because it makes me feel like a little spooked and scared. I don't
Mm.
know if it's because there's a lot of heaviness to the musical component of it, but to me it's just not something that I could listen to on a loop. Like, for example, I could listen to Harry's House. Like, I've probably listened to that album 16,000 times since it came out 2
Holy
years ago.
crap.
Not really, but like when I heard that album, I was like, this album is perfect for me. I love it, and I was able to listen to it on repeat. Same thing with all the Pearl Jam records, right? When 10 came out, I can't even quantify how many times I'm sorry, not when 10 came out. When I heard 10 for the first time,
Yes.
I was
Yes.
still, I was still not born when 10 came out.
Same.
But, yeah, so like this one, like I could tell, I'm like, this is really solid music. I am into this. But is it something that I would have on often? Probably, maybe no, but I'm not like opposed to like listening to more of their music, if that makes sense. But like
Right.
I might listen to more of their music like in 3 months from now, like
Right.
when I've taken a little break from this vibe. So that's just like my general consensus about it. I have like, I've kind of like not ranked all the songs, but I wrote like little notes after all the songs, like when I listened through it
Okay.
today. So, but we can just, I don't know like what we're going to do, if we're going to go song by song or whatever. But I also want to hear, before we get into that, I want to hear what your thoughts are, because you have heard them before. So you knew exactly what to expect. So I'm curious where you're at with this one.
Yeah, so I totally know what you mean about it not being something that you can listen to regularly. I kind of feel that way about most goth rock. Um, like even something as mainstream as like The Cure. Like people are obsessed with The Cure, and I totally understand why they're obsessed with The Cure. Or like even the Smiths, I understand less of why they're obsessed with the Smiths because I don't care for the Smiths. Um, and there are there's one particular Cure album that I could listen to pretty regularly, but sitting down and like listening to them, like I'm not gonna turn on and be like, what am I really in the mood for? The Cure. That's just not who I
Right.
am.
And that's fair.
And
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bauhaus is the same way. I love In the Flat Field. If I had to choose between which one of these two I would listen to, it would be In the Flat Field.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it's a little bit more raw than Mask, and I like that. Um, However, you're not going to see me listening to In the Flat Field like even once a month. Like I
Yeah.
maybe listen to In the Flat Field a couple times a year, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm in the mood for something darker. Um, because goth rock is so, it's just so like not one dimensional. That's very harsh, but it's definitely like the sound is all very the same. So
Yeah.
to me, it doesn't stream off and have a bunch of things to keep me engaged when it all starts kind of sounding the same. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not speaking on this album, I'm just speaking about goth rock in general, which is why I don't
Yeah.
gravitate to goth rock on a normal basis. I like a lot of post punk, which is another genre that they umbrella Bauhaus under. Talking Heads is a bit more post punk.
Mm-hmm.
There I could list you a bunch, but like I just don't particularly care for that really 80s goth rock all the time. I like it,
Yeah.
but I don't need it all the time.
Hmm.
Um, so I already knew going into listening to Mask that that's how I was going to feel. I was going to receive it and probably find things about it that I really enjoyed, but it was never going to be something that I was like, oh my God, this is the best album I've ever heard in my whole life. Like, my mind is blown.
Yeah.
There were definitely things about it that I thought were better as far as just its production style and its quality in Mask than in the Flat Field. But it's like I told you when we were talking last week privately, like the difference between verses and 10.
Yeah.
And we're people prepare yourself because we're going to use Pearl Jam a lot in our references.
Yeah. That's just how
Um,
we gauge the world.
yes. So like even though verses is an amazing record from start to finish. It's incredible. It's well done. It's polished. It's exactly what it needs to be. 10 is a bit more of a raw, open wound version of verses, and I like that about it more. Which is why I tend to lean more towards In the Flat Field than Mask. But I do think it is a really good record for the kind of genre that it is. I think that they kind of push themselves to branch out on what kind of instruments they were using, on the pacing of their songs, um, kind of making it to where there were some highs and some lows rather than it kind of sounding like this all the time. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a for what it is in the scope of what it is. I think it's a really really strong record.
Yeah.
If you had to say, hey, put on a goth rock record, which one are you going to put on? I totally would throw Mask on and play it,
Hmm.
like in my store or something to give that vibe. Um, but it's not necessarily something that I'm going to run over to my turntable, toss it on, and be like, yes, Bauhaus, thank you. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I am with it. I like it. I don't dislike it. I think it's a decent record.
Hmm.
Like I said, I think the band really expanded their sound from In the Flat Field to this one, which is something that's refreshing. And I think that's why a lot of critics consider this their best record because
Yeah.
people already loved In the Flat Field, and then when Mask came out, it like really rounded things out. Um, but it's just not really always my vibe. So
Yeah. I was
what
just
do you
trying to
what do you think?
see because my understanding is that this album came out and they came out with a third one in the 80s and then they
Yeah,
broke up. And
yeah,
then they came out with another one like in like 2008 or something like that.
yeah,
Or like 2000, yeah.
something like that.
Um
Yeah.
yeah, so they kind of had like a bit of a short life then, but it
Hmm.
does seem like from what I'm reading is that they've been kind of more active in recent years than I expected.
Yeah.
Um yeah, like years active according to Wikipedia is 78 to 83, so that's about 5 years. Then a blip in 98, then 2005 to '08, and they toured a little in 2019 and then toured a little in 2022. Um so like
I
that's
wondered if they
I
toured with The Cure, because that's about the time that The Cure would have been on tour, I think.
one of them was they went on tour with 9 Inch Nails.
Oh,
That might have been 2019. Oh wait, it
interesting.
says it right here. Maybe it doesn't. I read that somewhere. They were associated with 9 Inch Nails at one point. They were touring with them. I don't know if that was like '05, '08, or 2019. And then there
Hmm.
was a blip in 22, but from what another thing that I saw was in 22 is that they did have a couple shows scheduled, but they ended up canceling towards the end of the tour because the lead singer, and again, I don't know if this was drugs or physical, but he had to go to rehab. I don't know if
Hmm.
that like again, I don't know if it's because I was reading too that at some point he had like surgeries or something. Um, so I don't like health wise, I don't think they were able to continue for whatever reason in
Yeah.
22. Um, and they actually were supposed to. They were doing like a. Oh my god, where did I just see that? Was it David Bowie? No, not David Bowie. I get David Bowie confused with someone else all the time. It's gonna be embarrassing when I say who it was. They were doing like this multi-band tour
Hmm.
that was in honor of. Um, oh, it was David Bowie. Okay. Um, Yeah, celebrating David Bowie. Peter drops off celebrating David Bowie tour due to ill health, and this was in 2023. So I
Mm.
guess maybe that was just Peter Murphy, the lead singer. I don't think that was the whole band. Um, but I noticed, I was like, oh, they played right or literally down the road from me last October or something. Um, but he didn't do it. So it seems like they're still like they're not like a
Trying to
retired
kick
band.
around.
They're like a
Yeah.
pretty, I mean, I wouldn't say pretty active, but I was shocked to see that they were still active in more recent years. When
Oh
I
yeah.
was listening to this album, I was kind of like, this must be a band that like had a blip and then just fell off the face of the earth because I've never heard of them before.
Yeah.
um, but I'm wrong. So I stood corrected.
I do think that Bauhaus probably, if you're talking, like if you go up to somebody and you're like, hey, like what goth rock bands do you know? Obviously, if people aren't into goth rock, they're not going to know anything. But I'm saying, like, if you talk to like a record collector, okay, and you're going to be like, what kind of goth rock bands do you like? They're going to say The Cure, they're going to say The Smiths, and
Mm-hmm.
then they're not really going to know a whole lot more. Maybe the Joy Division. Um, and so Bauhaus to me kind of, they're not like at the bottom of the barrel, but they kind of sit under like the top tier. So
Mm.
the top tier to me is the Cure and the Smiths. They kind of
Mm-hmm.
just umbrella, and then it's like Joy Division and Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds and Susie and the Banshees, and then it's like right in that belly is where Bauhaus is. So
Mm-hmm.
could they have been somebody that was a blip in that time frame? Absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I haven't listened to their album that came out in the 2000s to know what it sounded like. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, 75 to 83, I think is what you said. That is a small blip in comparison,
Yeah.
you
No,
know.
it wasn't even 75. It was 78 to 83. So it was 5 years.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were really young, it seems, when they made their first
Yeah.
album.
Yeah.
Most of them were born in 1957. So that would have made them 23 when they had their first
Hmm.
album. Actually, that's even older than I thought. I thought they were in their teen years still, but um, yeah, like that's a young time to be together and then
Yeah.
to stick. I mean, I know bands stick through it, but you know, to have your 5 years of being in this really awesome rock band. I mean, what else
Yeah.
can you ask for? And clearly, they have some kind of legacy if they're still able to get together and perform in
Oh
front of an
yeah.
audience.
Oh yeah. For sure. For
So,
sure.
um,
Uh, I don't know that I could go track by track
all right, I'll just blow
knowledgeably.
through. No, I,
So
I
why don't you
my
just
notes are
give a
very
brace
short.
of, yeah,
Um, because I just wanted to go through and kind of like the reason I wanted to sit down and really like pay attention to every song today is I wanted to try to give each song its own ranking out of 5 stars. My cat is being
interesting.
so annoying. I'm so sorry. um, she either wants to be on this side of the door or that side of the door, and she's just bothering me either way. Yeah, you're a pain in the ass right now. I knew this would be a problem. Um, so yeah, I kind of wanted to go through that way to try to give myself like a way of rating it overall to kind of see where it was falling. First of all, I have a really
Sure.
hard time with a 5 star ranking because I have so little room to work with, but I did my best.
Yes.
Um, album opens with Hair of the Dog. I didn't write any notes. I just wrote that it's the album opener. Wow, Kate, good job. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I think it's
Okay.
very catchy. The song gets stuck in my head. Um, then The Passion of Lovers is the second song. I really
Hmm.
like that song a lot.
Yes.
I gave that one a 4 out of 5. And the only note I wrote was that I had a very sad feeling to it.
All their stuff has
Again,
sad feelings to it, really.
yeah, but some of them like surprisingly don't, and it like kind of takes you off, like catches you off guard a bit. Of Lilies and Remains is song number 3. I wrote down I'm glad that you said something about what is it, post punk, and
Yes.
that's like Talking Heads ish. I
I
wrote
mean,
down
post
here
punk is a
talking.
pretty broad range. Let's
Yeah.
Google. Let's see. Let's Google post punk bands. I do this sometimes, you guys, just to give myself an idea. So you have things like the Joy Division, Killing Joke, the B-52s, the Viagra Boys, which is more recent, Television, New Order, love them. The Sex Pistols. I don't know. I guess so. The Jam, early U2, Wire, The Talking Heads, Echo and the Bunnymen, The Cure, the Raincoats, The Cult, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds,
Mm-hmm.
Swans. So you got that
There's
kind
some
of,
crossover. Yeah.
yeah.
Because what I wrote here, like when you said the Talking Heads before, I was like, that's so funny that she said that because I wrote in this song, Talking Heads vibes, question mark.
Sure.
And I couldn't tell you, like without listening to it right now, like what about it made me feel that way. And I'm also not like obviously who doesn't like the Talking Heads? Like that's
Oh
just
my
not
God.
an opinion
They're
you
one
can
of my
have. Is
all-time
like
favorites.
I know they are, but I sat down and like listened to their music like more than one album, like a lot, like not really, but I'm very familiar with their music. So
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting that I like pulled that when they're not a band that like I'm obsessed with by any means. And then I also wrote just the right amount of weird, but I gave it a 3 out of 5. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I will say
Okay.
nothing got less than a 3. Oh, that's not true. Yes, it is. I gave nothing less than a 3.
Nice.
I like this. I like the song "Dancing," which is song number
Yeah.
4. I labeled it
I like
fun
dancing a
and
lot.
dark, and I gave
Hmm.
it a 4 out of 5.
Nice.
Hollow Hills, spooky Halloween vibes.
Yes.
Like you could put
Absolutely.
that on a Halloween playlist and it would blend right in.
Hmm.
I gave that one a 3.5 out of 5. Kick in the Eye, Dancy. I think this was one of their this was their single from this album. Was Kick in
I
the
think
Eye. I'm
so.
pretty sure. Um, this is where I start to note, put lots of hearts around the bass line. That is my number one note from this record. Is the bass playing is my favorite part about the whole
Yes.
thing. There are
Absolutely.
so many like moments where I'm like, this fucking sounds so good. And like, if they
Yeah.
didn't have that, I don't know if I'd be interested, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
Um,
I think that to me is a quality of goth rock is that there's
hmm,
these really punchy because you want everything to sit really low. Well, what's going to sit you lower than a good bass line? You know what
yeah,
I mean? You're not wanting to take them high and give them high riffs and the all this stuff that
no,
things like Van Halen do. No, you want to sit them low. You want to get them on their belly.
yeah,
And so the bass just brings you to that point.
mm-hmm,
And because all this stuff was going on in the late 70s, 80s, you're getting more of a thumpy bass, that kind
mm-hmm,
of more electronic thumpy bass, and oh, it sounds so good. Yeah, I agree.
yeah. It's my favorite part of the record. Um, In Fear of Fear got a 4.5 out of 10 for me.
That is my number one
Um,
song on this album.
Mine too.
Yep,
I'm so
yep,
excited.
that's my number one song.
Yep, my number one. I wrote again heart bass line, and then I wrote reminds me of something double question mark. I didn't elaborate there. I don't know what it reminds me of, but when I listen to that song, I'm like, I feel like I've heard this somewhere else.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so I felt like I was finding that like the beginning-ish to middle of the record I was really into, and then it kind of like towards the end gets like super
a
weird,
little
which
tapery.
I'm
Yeah,
in. Yeah, which I'm into. I'm like I'm not. I have no problem with that. But like my rankings in the middle are pretty high, and then towards the end they go back down again. Um,
yeah.
okay, so I also made a note here, and I don't know if anyone else would make this comparison, or if it's just me because I'm a big fan of this band. But halfway through this album, when I listened to it a couple of times, I was like, there is, and it probably has to do with the bass playing. I was like, a lot of this is really reminding me of Primus. Um, I love Primus,
Yes,
and
Primus is great.
once it starts to get weirder towards the end here, I'm like, it just gets more and more Primacy to me. Like I could, one of these
Interesting.
songs could be on a Primus record.
I would
Um,
have to listen
at,
to it again with that thought in my head because
yeah,
I wouldn't grab Primus off of this because I can't grab anything but Primus off of Primus, but that's just me.
true, true. I'm curious if maybe there was some kind of influence from this
Mm-hmm.
band for that. Like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. That's just my personal perception. So the song number 8, Muscle and Plastic, was the first one where I wrote, starting with those Primus vibes. I gave that song a 3 out of 5. Um, the Man with the X-Ray Eyes, I wrote no notes, but I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Um, Mask, I gave a 3.5 as I was listening to it, and then towards the end, it shot up to a 4 out of 5. Did I say 3.5? I'm sorry, a 3 out of 5, and then it shot up to a 4 out of 5 because there's like this like crazy acoustic guitar finale.
Yes. Yes.
That sounds so good. It just like changes the whole song.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. This song, the next song, In Fear of Dub, that when I was listening to it today, I was trying here and there to like click onto the lyrics to see if there was anything notable. I wrote, again, heart bass line. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. What I found interesting when I clicked on the lyrics for this song, it was listing lyrics on Spotify, like, you know how they have the automatic lyrics. But in my version of it, there's no lyrics at all. So I don't know what happened there. Either the version I'm listening to has no lyric, like it's an instrumental only for whatever reason, but there's lyrics listed on Spotify.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if anyone out there knows why that might have happened, please share. And it was like real lyrics. It wasn't like AI bullshit. It was like real. I even screenshotted it, I think.
I'm looking at.
And it was like lyrics that made sense with the title of the song.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
Mm-hmm. But if you listen to it, it's just instrumental.
Huh.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, no, I did give one less than a 3. I gave Earwax a 2.5 out of 5. I just wrote meh in my notes.
Pretty much after In Fear of Dub, my interest in the record starts to drop.
Yeah.
A little bit.
The song Harry kind of pulls me back in a little bit because all of a sudden it sounds like you're on a tropical island. I'm like, and this is the one song on this record where I'm like, this does not feel like the same band. It's still kind of weird, but it literally sounds like they're singing like Caribbean music. I gave that one a 3.5. And then the song number 14, which I'm not going to list the name of, but it's the one that's like 4 songs in one. And then it ends on like a reverse song. Like when they start singing about fish cakes.
Yes.
That's where I wrote, LOL, this is Primus, I swear.
Oh my god. Now that I can totally see. Yeah. That I can totally see. Yes.
That one I actually like don't dislike as much as I thought I would.
Oh, see, that's where I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm out. Gotta go.
Yeah, fair enough. And then Satori, I gave a 3 out of 5, because it's just a full instrumental, but it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's nice. So really for me, the middle of the album, it's where it's at.
Yes. It definitely has like a bell curve to it. For sure.
Yeah. So, overall, I didn't do like the average of my stars, but I felt that I gave 3.5 to most of them. So I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 for me.
That's good. That's good.
It's hard with 5 stars because I don't want to give anything 5 stars unless it's like, oh my God, like life-changing.
Oh yeah,
you know
for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely feel the same. I feel, like I said, I feel like from Hair of the Dog to In Fear of Dub, it kept my attention really, really well. And then after Fear of the Dub, I just really started losing interest in it. I don't know if that's because I get tired of listening to this music or if it's just because the songs aren't as good. But I definitely feel like Dancing, Hollow Hills, Kick in the Eye, and Fear of Fear, those are like boom, boom, boom. Like they're just really, really solid tracks. Hollow Hills, I actually think I have Hollow Hills on a Halloween playlist I made for the store. It's super creepy. But In Fear of Fear is my favorite. My 3 favorite songs are In Fear of Fear, Hair of the Dog, and Mask. And I love Mask because to me, out of all the songs, even though it's not my number one,
I think by accident. Sorry, what?
Which one?
Mask. I think I skipped my notes on that one.
Oh. No, because you talked about the
I'm sorry.
like more of acoustic breakdown.
I didn't read all of mine. Okay, I'm sorry.
That to me is what makes that song so interesting. And that song, in my opinion, that song is what takes this record for Bauhaus and elevates it from In the Flat Field, because that is something that they did not do in their first record, and they used new instruments. They kind of stretched themselves. They tried to make something a little bit more different than what they were known for in the past. And everything up until Mask, it was awesome, but it still really felt like Bauhaus. And then you come in with Mask, and it has a, a tinge to it that is very different and unique. Which I also love that it's the title track. That to me
Mm,
also helps correlate them stretching themselves with this album. The fact that they use the title track to kind of be the one to push them forward.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I definitely feel like the middle is the sweet spot for them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I gave the record 3.75 out of 5 stars. So not too much off from you. I gave it a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more, probably just because I'm more familiar with the band. Um,
Should
but
we go back to
yeah, it's
calling it a dinkometer?
we will get to the dink meter when it's necessary. I will bring it out.
Okay.
Don't you worry.
Right. This one does
I don't
not
think
follow the
they
dink
hit
meter.
I don't think they hit yeah, I don't think they hit the dink radar. I don't. But don't
So would
worry
you label any of these
because
songs a dink?
no, I don't think I'd label any of them a dink. Dink
Not
is a
even the four-part
particular
song?
breed. No, dink is a particular breed of song, okay?
All right.
Listen up, you
All right.
people. Parachutes by Pearl Jam is a dinky song. And I will stand by that statement. I've stood by it for years. I'll stand by it again. Okay? For all you people that are coming back from the Porch podcast, you all know
Sorry,
what I'm talking about.
Bradley.
The
Yep.
dink meter is strong with that song.
Hi. The needle is off the charts, as they say.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's killing it. It's killing it. But see, there's certain types of songs that are dinky.
Hmm.
I don't think anything on this album is dinky.
No, that's true. Yeah, I don't think it's
But
possible for us.
absolutely there will come records, I'm sure, in our
I'm
lifetime
so excited.
of doing this show where I'm like, I'm gonna need to bring out like a siren or something with a dink
Yeah.
meter. Like I'll have to think of some kind of sound to bring it out. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. But if you want an example of a dinky song, go listen to Parachutes by Pearl Jam. That song is dinky as hell.
So many
Dinky
people
as
don't agree with
hell.
you. So many
I don't give
people.
a shit what they say.
I know you don't. That's what I love about you.
I don't like Taylor Swift, and 99% of the world doesn't agree with me, so
Yeah,
bring it
sure.
on, bitches. I
Should I
don't
throw a
care.
Taylor Swift album into the pot?
Please, God,
Shoot
I will
off the
not do it.
bits?
I will not do it. I told the dudes when we were making the pot originally, I was like, if you put a Taylor Swift album in here, I will not review it. So you might as well just move on.
All right, fair enough. Right, we won't talk about Taylor Swift. I want to give my top three songs. I gave
Yes.
In Fear Fear was my number one. My number two, I really like The Passion of Lovers. And number three was Kick in the Eye.
Nice.
And honorable mention to Dancing.
Dancing is a great one. Yes.
It's funny, like, as someone who is not as musically educated as others, um, and I don't say that like I don't know music, like I do, but I don't like in terms of like gothic rock, like I wouldn't think to myself, like I wouldn't know what that really means. Um,
Sure. And
but
also,
listening to,
please understand that this is my job,
no, I know,
okay?
I know, I
Like,
know,
don't feel inferior because it's my job
no,
to know this stuff.
no, I
So,
know it is. But I just think it's funny because obviously, like I know now that this is like after like doing the research and stuff, this is a gothic rock band. When I was listening to it today, I wrote, "This feels like an album that a group of vampires would write."
yes.
And what I found so funny about that was that their big song from their first album is all about Dracula.
Hmm.
I was like, holy shit, like I know what I'm talking about.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. So yeah,
Absolutely.
Bela Lugosi's Dead is all about Bela Lugosi and his role playing Dracula. And I was
Yep.
like, okay, yeah, no, it just feels good when you're right.
Yep.
So I just had to point that
Absolutely.
out.
Absolutely.
Um, I want to give. So I know we gave it like an overall star ranking, and we ranked our songs. I want to start another chart
Okay.
because, like I said in the beginning here, um, and I don't know how, on a scale how we're gonna judge this, but to me, what makes like an album that I really love is something that I'm able to replay often. or like music or genres, whatever, is that I can listen to over and over again. So I want to do like a replayability scale. Like,
Mm.
where would you put this on a replayability scale? I guess on a scale of 1 to 5.
I was gonna say, what was the probably like a 3.
Oh wow, I'd put
I'm
it.
not saying I wouldn't return to it, but I also don't feel like I would keep it on repeat. So it kind of would hit right in the middle.
Mm-hmm. I'd probably give it like a 2, like a low 2.
Sure, that's all right.
Um, because like I said before, like I had to listen to it over and over again to do this project.
Right,
Um, but would I have done that on my own? Probably not.
right.
But it's so interesting to say that because I'm giving the album itself a 3.5 out of 5. Like I could tell that it's good music
Because
that
you're
I'm
actually
listening to.
enjoying, because you're appreciating the art piece for what it is. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean that it's
Hmm.
going to be your favorite. Not
No.
everything that we
Yes.
can listen to is going to be Pearl Jam,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. No, it's
but you
true.
can appreciate it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so great about listening to music is that you can step into a position where you're like, I've never heard of this band, I know nothing about this kind of music, like whatever, and you can still find ways to appreciate the art for what
Yeah.
the people made it for,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
And this is art to me. Like this whole album feels
Oh, sure.
very artistic.
Artsy,
Like would
artsy.
I listen to a Pearl Jam record and think like this is art? Like obviously it is, and I know
Yeah,
that. I understand that as a concept, but would I think like wow, this is like an artistic visionary created this? Like no. Like that's just not the vibe you get. This gives me like I'm listening to this album in a museum because it's on, like that's where you
yeah,
find like it's actually art in in the more like literal sense, I guess is what I'm
yeah,
trying to say.
sure.
Um, so yeah, I think overall, I'm glad I listened to it. I'm glad it, and I will say too, like how Spotify, when you end an album, it kind of like pushes
Hmm.
more music like that to you. So much of that was also really good, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like some of the songs that would pop on after, I'd be like, oh, this shit fucking rocks, man.
Do you
So, and
remember anything specific that you liked?
now, there was one that came on the other day that I meant to make note of what it was and I didn't. But maybe I'll find it again. But what's funny about this is I, in general, just like really don't care for music from the 80s. In like, and I obviously I don't, that's like not an umbrella statement. Like, there are exceptions to that. But to me, music that sounds like it was made in the 80s is just not my
Still
thing.
sounds like it was made in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the fact that I liked this, and because even when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this was like it came out in 81. I was like, oh no, I'm really not gonna like this. And I really did. So that's another thing that I'm really liking about this is it's helping me to explore things that I otherwise would never have even like I'll listen to new music and stuff, but if I saw this record and I was like, oh, 1981 Bauhaus, I'd be like, I would never listen to that. Um,
That's a shame because the 80s is a great decade of music.
I know that it is, and I like, and that's why I'm trying to like not say that as like an umbrella statement, but just in general, and because this
So
music sounds like
when you say I don't like 80s music, what is like what is the first like song or two that come to your head that you're like, ugh, I hate that
you
song.
know, I don't even know if it's like I think it would be like in the same way that people say they don't like 90s music, which I don't know if there's like a specific song or type of music. It's just like maybe the way it was produced or like the kind of sounds that came out of the time, which I even hear in this album. Like there's something, and again, I know this is early 80s. It's probably closer to the 70s than the 80s, which I think makes it even more interesting to me because, the 70s are a totally different era of music and you kind of have an idea of what 70s music sounds like. And to me, this is not it. I feel like this is like completely something new. Um, but I just and like and when you read about this band and you like look at their pictures, they look like hair metal, they look like glam metal and all that, or glam rock or whatever. And that has its place, and it's not in my world. So that's another thing. Like I would have stereotyped the band based on like that photo you posted on Instagram of
Mm-hmm.
them. if I had seen that, I would have been like, no, I'm good. Like, I have no interest in listening to a band that may look like this. Um,
Which is hilarious to me because you
why?
were a Chili Peppers fan. And the early
Yeah,
Chili Peppers,
I don't
I
like their
mean, they
early
were all
music.
over.
I don't
What?
like it at
They've got
all.
such
Mm-mm.
cool music and oh my God, they're so funky.
And that's what I mean. Like, that is a weird hill that I'm living on. I'm not saying I'll die on it. I'm open to it. But I've tried, and I just like it just doesn't hit to me in the same way. To me, it's a different band completely, and like that's not the band that I'm obsessed with. And I'm not saying it's bad. It has its place. It's interesting. It's very innovative. Um, they would not be the band that they are today if they didn't have those 4 records in the 80s.
Mhm.
But I have personally no taste for it. Some of the songs I do,
Do
but
you
overall,
think,
just not my
do
thing.
you think, because I know that the Chili Peppers are like up there with Pearl Jam for you, like you love the
Yeah.
Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
So, do you feel like your distaste for the Chili Peppers' first few records that came out in the 80s
Mm-hmm.
trickles down into your judging of the 80s in general?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
because like I don't think that's like it's not an opinion like I hate Taylor Swift. Like it's not like I'm black and white on that. I just know that when I listen to music and it veers into that direction, it just doesn't feel personal to me anymore. It starts to feel something that's like, or starts to feel in a way that's like pretty foreign. It might be because if I like really think about it, I did not grow up in a household that listened, again, I could be wrong about this, but I at least did not grow up in a household that listened to music that sounded 80s. My parents always listened to a lot of music that probably would have predated that.
Sure.
So I'm comfortable with like pre 80s and I'm comfortable with 90s and on, but something about like that middle ground um, just doesn't feel like home or familiar to me. And I think it takes a
Hmm.
lot more effort for me to understand it, um, which is why I'm saying like this is like same thing with the Chili Peppers records. Like it's a hill that I'm on, but it's not one that I would necessarily die on. Um, and that's why like I'm glad we're doing this because now I'm listening to this record and I'm like, this record I would have prejudged and I would have not listened to it. Um, and even the record itself sounds a little like that.
Oh, yeah.
But I got over it, after I listened to it. Um, Once you kind of take yourself out of like, this isn't something I'd usually like. So I just think a lot of the music from that era is just very unfamiliar to me. I don't really know a lot about it. And like I said, it's just not something that was ever in my life often. So I just don't care for it. In summary.
So, okay, I'm gonna continue to probe this because it interests me because
Okay.
I I did grow up in a household that had 80s music in it, 70s. So my dad was born in 62. My mom was born in 66. But my dad had older sisters that were like over 10 years older than him. So he was
Mm-hmm.
listening to like 60s and 70s stuff. And then after he got out of high school and was in college, was listening to 80s stuff. Whereas my mom, like the 80s were her high school years.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we had a big menagerie of music in my household. Um, and when I think of 80s music, I think that there is like I think most society has like this preset idea of what the music sounds like in their head.
Mm-hmm.
But when they actually sit down and think about the albums that came out in the 80s, it kind of like takes that away. So, or it like kind of removes a veil. Because when you
Mm-hmm.
think of the 80s, like you're thinking of dudes with like weird haircuts and like
Mm-hmm.
it's all like, but then I think like to me, like I think about Tina Turner's Private Dancer, right? That album
Mm-hmm.
came out in like 85, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that album is like so classically like amazing. Like it, yes, there are elements of it that are 80s, but like Tina Turner is a classic sound. So
Mm-hmm.
that album just like succeeds time essentially. Um, so I'm interested to think like so if I were to like let's just say in future episodes, if I were to throw out an album that came out in like 86,
Hmm.
are you going to be a lot more deterred to dislike it just because it's from
No.
the 80s? Okay.
No, and it also depends on like what I know about it too, I think. And I think like when this was sent to me and I immediately looked it up, I was like something about this feels like something I would judge. And I don't know if judgment is the word. I really don't know how to.
Hmm.
It just like it automatically got put into some kind of category of like being very
Sure.
unfamiliar. And then also seeing that it came out in 81. I was like, all right, I feel like I know exactly what this is going to be. And I was kind of right, but I was also like really wrong. I was like 10% right about like my
Sure.
prediction of what it was going to be. Um oh shit, what was I going to say? Oh no, I had a thought when you were talking about Tina Turner. No, I don't remember. I hate when that happens. I need to start drinking tea that helps my memory.
Hey, there you go. Because I looked up, like, I just Googled, like, top albums from the 80s. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I remember what I was
The
going to say.
Joshua Tree by U2,
Mhm.
classic. Um, Purple Rain by Prince.
Yeah.
Doolittle by the Pixies. Do you like the Pixies?
I don't really have an opinion.
Oh, I feel like you would love the Pixies. Um, you had
They
Tom
come up on
Petty
my
putting out
Spotify
stuff.
sometimes.
You had Tom Petty putting out stuff. That's the
Mhm.
beginning of hip hop. So you have like the NWA, and you have Run DMC, and you have Public Enemy, and you have all this stuff. You have Talking Heads, you have
Yeah.
Madonna, you have The Replacements, you have Beastie Boys, you have Sonic Youth. So there really is like a lot. I'm so, the fact that you said this to me, like, I didn't realize this is how you felt about 80s music, and it makes me want to not push 80s music in your face because we're not going to do it that
Mhm.
way, but it makes me want to kind of like compile some things to keep in our wheelhouse to help you explore the 80s a bit more, because I really do feel like what you're thinking in your head, even though that is what was kind of at the forefront of the 80s, I feel like there's so much going on in the 80s that you would find it refreshing if you got to
Yeah,
listen to
no.
some of
I
this
mean,
stuff.
I know exactly what you're saying and I know that I know what you're thinking that I'm thinking, and I think to an extent I am thinking that of like this like stereotype of what this era from 1980 to 1989 was sounded like, and I know that that's not totally correct. I like am fully
Right.
aware. And that's why I don't really think this is like a black and white opinion because I know that there's lots of music and artists that were born out of this era that I really respect and appreciate and have enjoyed on my own. It's just not ever the decade that I go back to. And I
Hmm.
think that's why that's just kind of like where I'm at mentally. Like, you know, when we used to talk about 10 and we would talk about like what the production was like, and
Hmm.
that's part of what made it good, but also kind of what made it like seem not as
Timeless.
professional or whatever as the rest of them. To me, like a lot of music from that era is like veiled in that feeling of, and again, I'm sure I'm wrong about this and I could be put in my place, but oh my god, what the hell? Oh, Jesus Christ.
Did she like run
Amber's just
across you or something?
she just like went through my ankles and scared the shit out of me. Um there's just something like production value wise that I feel like I can't not hear.
Mm.
Um and it just it's just like veiled in this sound that existed at that time. Um and it's kind of where I get turned off on occasion, even with the artists that have like legendary albums from that time. Like something about it just doesn't feel as I don't know. I don't know the word. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I feel like I'm like trying to defend myself, even though I know
No,
I don't
you're
need to
not. And
with
I
you.
don't want you to
I
feel that
I
way.
know
I don't
I
want you to
know
feel that
that.
way.
There's just I honestly think what it comes down to, if I'm like really reflecting on it right now, is just like the lack of that in my life
Okay.
growing up. Is there something about it that just doesn't feel familiar, and it just doesn't make me as excited as or as like interested as other
Sure.
eras of music.
Sure.
Um, so that's just kind of like where I'm at. I'm definitely interested in trying new things always. Um, but that's just kind of like where my
Yeah.
prejudgment comes
I
from.
just didn't know this about you. So that's why
Yeah, no, this
I'm
is
just
fun.
probing questions because I didn't realize that. I mean, I knew that I knew going into it on an objective level, like me knowing about Bauhaus. I really only know about Bauhaus ultimately because I've seen the records have gone through my hands. So
Mm-hmm.
I have a sort of like weird viewpoint of music because I do it professionally as much as I
Yeah.
love it personally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I just find it fascinating because a lot of the artists that you love are so influenced by some of these people, and so
I
I
know.
think it'll
Isn't that
just be
funny?
it'll be interesting to see as we do this cycle and we go. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and like rig the system. Like I want us to like authentically pull stuff, whether it's from the 50s or whether
Yeah.
it's from 2022. Um, but I am interested as we approach these 80s albums. I'm very interested to see what your thoughts are.
Yeah. And so like
And
even going back to
I
what I
hope
said,
that maybe it maybe opens up a little blossom spot for you for
it
the
probably
80s.
will. And so like an example of like me putting my foot in my mouth, Primus is also a band that was born out of the 80s and a lot of their music has that like weird, but now I'm trying to think like which I don't love every Primus album, that's for sure.
For sure.
Um I guess they started in the 80s, but they didn't record an album until 1990. See, like that's just like all like I love Frizzle Fry so much, which came out in 1990, but I'm sure they recorded that probably in like 88 or 89. And a
Sure.
lot of a lot of the songs on that album were written in the 80s and they were performed before they ever recorded them. So, and a song coming out in 1990 is an 80s song. Let's be real. Um, so like that's an example of like there's always exceptions to music that I love. And like I said, there are Chili Pepper songs from the 80s that I do like, but in general, I just don't listen to those records at all. I just don't really like
Yeah.
them. I'm just not into it. What I was going to say before is I also think what deters me a bit, and again, have I really dug into it? Not really, but I think like every like huge rock group, because that's like my genre in general,
Hmm.
that came out of the 80s, I just really don't have any interest in either. Like I don't think they're bad. I just like hear the songs and I'm like, this is just they're fine. I feel like we get
Oh,
some like
listen,
people on the internet are gonna hate me for this.
there's a lot of commercial rock and roll from the 80s that I don't care for.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the truth. I tend to lean when it comes to the 80s, I tend to lean more in the alternative
Yeah.
spectrum.
Hmm.
Um, because like I don't like Guns N' Roses. Can't stand them.
Yeah. No
Don't like them.
thanks.
I'm not a U2 fan. I like the Joshua Tree okay. I like
Hmm.
their first album. Um, I'm just looking at this list right
I
now.
actually
Van
do like you
Halen.
too, but yeah, don't
I
care.
like some Van Halen music. I'm not saying
Hmm.
that they're not worthy of what their accolades are. But overall, their music is, it doesn't hold my interest.
Yeah.
Um, I don't like a lot of the big pop. I don't like Madonna at all.
Really? See, I would see
No,
that's like where I'd also make. I mean, do I listen to her music? No, but I would definitely make an exception for Madonna.
no, I don't care for Madonna. I don't care for, I'm trying to think of, like, just a lot of that pop stuff that was coming out in the 80s. I'm not saying I don't like, who's not gonna like sing to like a virgin? I mean, let's be
Yeah.
real. But, it's like even like, stuff that was I'm trying to think like even like Hall and Oates, right? Hall and Oates started in the 70s, but they got really popular in the 80s. I like a couple of their songs okay. They don't do a
Hmm.
whole lot for me. I mean, it's totally across the board. Everybody has different tastes. But when I think of the 80s, I definitely think of it, I think, in a bit of a brighter light because of the stuff that I do like from it.
Hmm.
And I think, not to toot my own horn, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but because you and I have similar tastes in music in a lot of ways, whatever comes across our table that I like from the 80s, I think you would enjoy from the 80s.
Probably.
Um, because it is more alternative, and that is the kind of stuff that was influencing young Eddie Vedder's, young Kurt
Hmm.
Cobain's, young Chris Cornell's,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I'm excited.
I
I'm
will.
excited for whatever comes our way.
Me
But
too. I will say my mom used to have a CD in her car that I discovered once. This is when I was a kid. That was like summer hits of the 80s or something like that. I was obsessed with it. I thought it
that's
was
so
so
fun.
good.
Do you
Like there were
remember what
so
was
many
on it?
songs. Oh, there's one song. Fuck me, I can't remember. I was just trying to Google. That's what I was just doing on my phone. I was trying to Google it to see if it like exists on the internet. Is this it? No, that's all like Jamaican stuff. Oh, oh my god! If I wish my mom was like listening to this, she would know exactly what I'm talking about. Um, I wonder if I just like search like summer hits of the 80s. If like because the whatever the song is, it's like a popular song that
Uh, there's one on Discogs. It's called Daily Express's 80s Summer Hits. It
I don't. To be
has
honest, I don't even know if it was like summer hits. Like that's just my memory of it because it had like a very colorful cover.
because this has like the Laws. It has Cool and the Gang. It has ABC. It has a Style Council. Um,
And I should say like it was a popular song, I think, but also not like I had never heard it before.
sure.
Um, there's one song every time I hear it, I'm like, oh my god, it brings me back to being in my mom's car when I was a kid. Oh, this is so
And
sad. I wish I could share this with our listeners. I'm sure my mom will remember the song if I text her, and I can text you what it is later. But oh, it just popped in my head. Wow, this is torture.
can you just text your mom?
Yeah, I can. I just don't know if she's going to answer me in a timely manner.
Oh,
Hang on, I'll do this. Hey, mom, do you remember what that one song on that 80s album was that we used to listen to in your car that I absolutely loved? She's gonna be like, why did you text me, hey, mom? I've never said that in a text
2 hours later.
before. Yeah. But yeah, so like that's what I mean. Like there's definitely like more nuance to this than just me being like, I
Sure.
don't really like 80s music.
Yeah,
It's
for
just
sure.
not it's just not my preferred era of music in general.
Yeah.
Amber, I'm going to kill you.
Listen, I kind of feel that way about the 2010s. Like I feel like
Hmm.
I really didn't grasp onto a bunch of people in high school.
I remember it. The
Oh,
beat is on. The beat is on. Do you know what I'm talking about? The beat is
the beat is
on.
on. That's LA Express.
Whoa, 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 coming to the action. I've been looking out for you. What's it called? The beat is on.
It's called
I'm
The
just
Beat
so
is
happy I
On
thought
by
of it.
LA Express. LA Express.
Oh, the heat. Oh no. Why is it not coming on?
I think that's it anyway.
Is it the heat is on? Maybe.
The Heat is on.
No, this can't be it.
The Heat is On by Glenn Fry. That came out in 1984.
I think this is it.
Which one? The Heat is On? Oh, yeah. That's
The
so
sax.
80s.
I know. I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought a woman was singing that song.
No, that's Glenn Fry. You know where he's from? The Eagles. He
Oh.
was in the Eagles.
Again, I like that song because it has a significant core memory,
Sure.
like association.
Sure.
Whoa, 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 going to the action. I've been looking for
Um,
you.
yeah, that's like
Anyway, love that
super
song.
80s.
I know. That's probably why in my head I'm like, this is how all 80s music sounds. Anything with a
Yeah.
sax.
Well, the saxophone was very popular in the 80s. That,
It sure
you
was.
have to give the 80s credit where it's due because that is the truth. Um,
Yeah. Or give it some
but
grace, to be
anyway,
honest.
I'm just excited after all that conversation. I'm excited for what's to come. I
Me
feel
too.
like we're gonna explore. I can't wait to watch you explore some albums that I
Mm-hmm.
think you'll really like. Um, and I think it's gonna be a fun time.
I want to throw some albums in the pot too. How many albums are in the pot?
Oh, let's see.
Also, are we picking a new album now, or we're waiting till your record club is
We are meeting next week, so
okay?
probably I'll just announce it after record club.
Okay.
Um, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
The heat is on.
2, 3, 4,
I'm
5,
gonna text this to my mom now.
6,
And be like, found it.
7, 8, 9. Hold on.
I think Rock Lobster might have been on that record too, or that album. I keep calling it a record. It was a CD. That's from Beverly Hills Cop. That song.
There are
Talk about 80s.
210 albums in
Oh
the
my
pot.
god! So even if I throw an album in the pot, it's highly unlikely it'll get selected.
Well, you say that, but the guys have already been very surprised by some of the things that have come out of the pot.
Okay.
So me and the dudes are actually not covering Mask this month
No.
because we picked out an Italian record that I threw into the pot. Um, that they have no clue what it is, and I've been wanting to listen to it because last year I kind of started getting into more world music, like music from other countries. So
Yeah.
I threw that in there. So I told Kate, I was like, I think we need to start on a more standard album
Yes.
instead of just throwing this out. Although I've really been enjoying the record.
Hmm.
I already know that one of the dudes is like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll see how the rest of them feel. But so as long as we don't pick something super wild,
Hmm.
um, because it's not that I don't want to do wild stuff, but I also want to like because we're going to have an audience, I do want it to be engaging to people that are
Yeah.
maybe like, oh, I've been wanting to listen to that record, like whatever. So I will kind of taper it. Like if we pull out like a French record, I'm gonna be like, well, maybe we should probably try something else. Unless it's like a really big French record, and then I may say, hey, fuck it, we're just gonna do this.
Hmm.
So we'll see. There are some things that they have put in the pot that I'm like, I'll listen to it. I'll listen to it. I'll listen to it. But still, I'm kind of like, like we listened to 22 a Million. That was our last album last month by Bon Iver.
I don't know what
I
that
don't know
is.
how you feel about Bon Iver.
Oh,
Um,
it's yeah.
I don't care for Bon Iver, but again,
Hmm.
we're talking about 2010s music, and it was just not. I don't know what I
Yeah.
was. You know what I was listening to in the 2010s? I was discovering grunge music in the 2010s. That
Also
was
Mumford
like,
and Sons though.
oh yeah, I do
They were
love Mumford.
2010s. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was like I'm thinking like 2013, 2014. Like that's when I really started digging into like loving the Foo Fighters and loving Soundgarden and loving like
Yeah.
stuff like that. And so
That's fair.
I was kind of going backwards at that point. But yeah, we covered Bon Iver last month, and I was just like, I like it.
Yeah, I like
It's
Bon
all
Iver,
right.
but it's not. He's not like a person I've ever listened to on my own. My boyfriend puts him on sometime, or like he's now on our like shuffle. Like he comes up on my playlist a lot because we share a Spotify. We don't share one, but
Have
we
like a
have
family
now a
account.
lot. We now have a lot of crossover because
Yeah.
that's just what happens when you're in a relationship.
Yep.
So his music does come on sometimes, and I think it's really nice. I don't think it's so it's again, it's one of those things where it's like, have I ever heard one of his songs and thought to myself, wow, I really need to go listen to this whole record? No, that hasn't happened, but I'm not saying it
Right.
wouldn't happen.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway,
So any whoozy whatsies.
is there anything else that you want to add to the Bauhaus conversation? Are we pretty much wrapped up with that? I feel like we did a pretty
I
good job.
I do too. I feel like I more than said everything I wanted to say. Overall, a good experience. I'm so excited to find out what the next one was going to be. I was like on the
I
edge of my
know.
seat waiting for you to text me what this one was going to be.
I
Um
know. We'll have to wait and see
so
what the pot gives us next
yeah, and
week.
maybe I'll think of a couple records, maybe even one or two
Yeah.
from the 2010s that I could throw into the pot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've anytime the pot is always open. You can throw anything in at any time. So even though
Okay.
there's 200 titles in there, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
let's keep it going. Let's keep it
Yeah.
fresh. So, well, all right. I guess we're done, everybody. I don't know who's
See, I feel
watching.
like I know. I feel like we got into our groove. I feel like it happened. We just needed to have like something to focus on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So there's your kitty cat.
I'm gonna go punch her in the
She's
face
like,
after I hang up.
she's like, Mom, let me out, Mom.
Yeah,
All
she's
right,
being a big
friends, we're
bitch.
gonna we're gonna hop off. Thanks so much for tuning in to our first live stream. I feel like it went
Yay!
relatively well. We only had one mild bump at the beginning. I feel like we did good other than that. So hopefully next month it'll just like shoot straight into something
Yeah,
super
that would
smooth and exactly.
exactly,
Exactly.
Amber. Well thought. Well thought. Well said.
Yes. All right, friends. Until next month, thanks so much for tuning in to Two Turntables and a Microphone. Man, I almost said the Porch Podcast. I
Oh
literally had to
no!
stop myself from saying the Porch Podcast.
R.I.P.
Yeah, I know.
R.I.P.
My brain was like, here we go. We're clicking back in
Yeah.
now. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Two
Oh,
turntables and a microphone. My name is Jessi.
I'm Kate.
Okay, Cotton. Yum.
Yum.
And
Never
we'll see
forget
you
that.
guys on March 25th. So mark your calendars because that's the
Awesome.
next date.
I will mark my
And
calendar as well.
there you go. And
All right.
we'll see you guys then. Thanks so much. Love you all.
Love
Talk to you later.
you.
Bye bye.